Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another week of Crunching Your Growth. I'm Phil Masiello, and if you've ever felt stuck, like you're like the harder you work, the more stuck you become in business, then this one's for you. My guest is Justin Lund. He scaled a couple of companies to nine figures, rebuilt after real adversity, and now he helps founders break through the capacity ceiling, that point where hustle stops working and freedom feels out of reach. So today we're digging into the mindset systems and delegation strategies that let your business scale without you being the bottleneck. You've heard me talk about my experiences with some of our clients and having to get them out of that bottleneck that they're stuck in, and also some of my stories in the past, and so it's going to be a good one. But he's also got a great background story talking about resilience and talking about perseverance. So let's bring him in, and we'll get into it, and we'll see if you find it interesting. Justin, thanks for taking the time to come on.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's great. It sounds like a great story. I know we had a pre-interview, and some of the things you were talking about were just, great. So why don't you let's get into it right away and start telling us about your whole backstory.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I guess the backstory starts. I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit that was probably planted at a young age when my brothers would bring in. I'm the last of nine kids, so I was
Ah,
the loose, big family. And my older brothers would bring in things like Tony Robbins tapes when it was cassette tapes back then off infomercials on TV. I loved the energy that came from that guy. This big, huge guy talking so passionately, and that kind of lit a fire in me. I'm talking. I was probably 8 or 9 years old when I first listened to that. That was really fun and interesting for me, and that grew and kind of fostered that desire to be my own boss and have kind of some independence. Which is a little ironic because as I got into sales to put my way through college, which was good, that I actually tried to use my Tony Robbins-esque voice to make sales and to pitch people things, and
yeah.
it worked pretty well. I was pretty good at it. I was doing okay as a college kid, bringing in some pretty good commission checks. Um, but then I got married, and those marriage plans kind of accelerated with an unexpected child on the way. So then we went from unexpected to expecting real
Yeah.
fast. And that meant I needed to grow up pretty quick too. So I was still
Yeah.
21, 22 years old. And luckily I had the sales job that I had a pretty good knack for. So I thought I could make my living there while I'm figuring things out growing up. But there was kind of a dark side in the sales environment of prescription drug abuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I got into. And that's some of that backstory that you were alluding to. I was kind of trying to hide a bit. My wife really wanted, the baby on the way, and, soon after we had our second child on the way,
Yeah.
and she really was hoping I would be, well, honestly, a dentist. She wanted, she wanted me to be somebody that had a 401k that carpooled to work with the neighbors and just, a square, like a just
Yeah.
easy to predict kind of guy. And I was trying to reconcile that desire that she had for me and me trying to provide for a family with this entrepreneurial spirit that I had.
Yeah.
It, everything opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of let some of the drugs come in as a way to cope with initially and numb and kind of hide some of this part of life that was easier to numb than to address and face, especially as a 20, maybe 2 or 3 year old at this time. So that, as with anything with those kind of addictions, got darker and harder as that path progressed over the next couple of years. And I went from being a functioning one to not able to function, got in
Mhm.
trouble with the law, and kind of had to figure out how to deal with that situation. And
Yeah.
my ditch approach was going into a rehab facility, which Phil was probably one of the most terrifying moments of my life going in with two kids at the time. I had a baby and a 2 year old and a wife that I thought was not going to be there when I got out.
Right.
Kids would be gone. I was in financial mess at that point. Um, and trying different businesses, working things and, little successes here and there, but nothing that I could string together because I was personally kind of a mess. But in that facility, I began to learn the power of frameworks and systems,
Right.
because that's what they're all based on.
Yeah.
I tried to white knuckle through this thing for years and tried to quit, tried stopping just through sheer willpower, through motivation.
It doesn't
I
work.
get super motivated sometimes. And 4 days in, I'd be like, man, I just can't. That stuff is real bad on the body and on the brain. Um, but they gave me the frameworks and the tools to really process things in a different way. And I began to use all that stuff I read about in Tony Robbins' books and really apply it to me, because a lot of it was the same. There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
There was a lot of just cognitive frameworks and psychological models that they were teaching me how to apply to myself and giving me some understanding of why I might be doing some of the things I was doing. And from there, I was 6 weeks in that inpatient facility. And after that, I mean, I grew a business over the next 18 months to 8 figures, maybe just shy of 8 figures, about 18-month mark. And then within 2 years after that, I was sniffing 9 figures. I mean, it was amazing, like truly just like astonishing to me that when I could take all the bandwidth my brain was utilizing to try to maintain this addiction, this toxic behavior that I was trying to keep alive, and got rid of that and redirected it into something more productive and positive. Man, the bricks stacked up pretty quickly relative to the path that I'd been going before,
Sure.
before that. Yeah. So, yeah. Any thoughts, questions there?
No, I think it's, I've watched a lot of people in my lifetime go through that. Good people, everybody thinks that it's just some, down and luck people that get into drugs, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've watched a lot of entrepreneurs do it because I think there's this, once you hit it, and the money starts rolling and the business is growing, there's this sort of almost invincibility. I mean, you see it with the guy who founded Zappos, right? He
Mm.
became a well, it killed him ultimately,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
but and then you look at Elon Musk and his ketamine thing, and I think people get almost like I'm invincible,
Yeah.
and they turn to drugs, and it can really do some damage if you can't get yourself out of it. But it sounds like
Mhm.
you got yourself out of it and then channeled that whole, um, I guess, energy into something more positive.
It was, and it was it. You're right. You hit that point where you see some wins, and it's really what I learned is it's never, almost never, is it about the drink or the drug or whatever it is. There's just some area that we're not addressing. It's real
Yeah,
uncomfortable to face and to get clear on. And so these behaviors, whether it's chocolate or prescription pain pills, they can start to get carried away.
it's funny you say chocolate. I listened to Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton had an addiction problem. Obviously, I think everybody knows that back in the '60s and '70s, between heroin and alcohol, and he's been in and out of rehab. And he started his own rehab facility down some island in the Caribbean.
Hmm.
And they were interviewing him, and they said, when do you think your addiction started? When you made it big? He said, no, I think my addiction started when I was a child, when I was eating chocolate bars like crazy. And he goes into his whole past, and about how he thought his mother wasn't real. His mother wasn't really his mother. His mother was actually his aunt, because his real mother had gotten pregnant, and she left him with her sister, and then she took off. And then when he finally met her, he was like 11 or 12, she didn't want him, and that was sort of sent him into this like spiral in his head.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
started out eating chocolate bars, and then it went into alcohol, and then when he could afford it, it turned into heroin. It's funny that you should say that, because I only know this from my problems, my addiction to sugar, right? Is my constant attempt to stop it, is that sugar metabolizes in the body the same way that alcohol does. And
Mm.
so, you're essentially, I don't drink, I don't do drugs and things like that, but I do have a sugar addiction, and it's serious and it's bad, and it
Mm.
causes my weight to fluctuate constantly. So I have to be cognizant of it. But you're 100% right. You said chocolate, and it's true. You're always trying to like you're eating the chocolate to hide something, right? Or to
Yeah.
cover up something or whatever it is,
Yeah. To
and
make something feel a little bit better. Yep.
it's a stress thing for me. I know exactly what the trigger is. It's stress. It could be a bad day.
Yeah.
Something happens, like during COVID, right? I mean, things were changing every day. We were in the
Mhm.
e-commerce space, and companies were going out of business, and it was just terrible. And like I would have a bad day, and I'd run to the cabinet, and I'd be like shoving Hershey's Kisses in my mouth. So
That's right.
yeah,
And that knowing knowing that it's like that awareness at least is good. It's real hard to get that awareness when your
yeah,
thing creates a cognitive like change, like you're getting drunk, or you're getting high or stoned or something. Then it just gets further and further out of
yeah,
reach and out of view. And in that facility, teaching me how to kind of use those frameworks to process thoughts, and as stimuli come in, and I can have this space before a response, and there's different ways to start redirecting. They gave me a really good analogy in there, that something that I've used again and again. It's like you look out the window and look at the biggest mountain that you can see, covered with trees and rocks
sure,
and boulders, and they say, just imagine trying to jump in a car and drive right up over the top of that. Like you having the first time you decided to do drugs, or the first time you wanted to cover up that thing and cope with it in an incorrect way, it was like driving up over that mountain. It's real tough. You had to kind of rationalize and justify a bunch of things. But once you've done it once, like you can see the trail. Like you can see, and after you've done it a time or two or three or 20 or 50, you've got a 6-lane road paved. Like, it's a straight shot. It's
yeah,
easy. And now redirecting those thoughts and going down a different road is like this one used to be, the road where your thoughts used to travel. These synaptic connections in your brain, they're dormant. They're there, but they're
yeah,
dormant. Trees are growing up. Some rocks have slid down the road. It's kind of blocking the way. So you got to plow your way through them and work through that process. But as you do it, it kind of lubricates the process, and those become more and more normal. But it takes the discipline to, you got to pause. You got to bring the discipline, because motivation, whether you're an addict, you're trying to overcome something, or whether you're an entrepreneur and you're running your business, if you're relying on motivation, you're smoked. Like it's a fickle friend. It shows up once in a while, and sometimes it just leaves. And where did it
no,
go?
yeah. It's funny because I did after college. I put myself into therapy, for a little bit because I was struggling with some issues, and then I built my first business, and it was a total disaster. It was a disaster because of poor leadership and poor systems management, process management. It was horrible. And
Mhm.
I've talked about it on this show a lot, and I've talked about how I really feel bad for the people who worked for me at the time. The business itself wasn't bad. There's the way I was running it that was really bad. And I had some issues, and some of it is a sort of a classic entrepreneurial problem, which is you feel like I'm the entrepreneur. I had the idea. I should have all the answers. And I was young. I was in my mid 20s, and you shouldn't have all the answers. But I had to overcome that, and I had to become a little bit more self aware of what I did and why I did it and how I did it.
Yeah,
And so I started to go to a therapist, and some of the things you're talking about, because that's all that is. It's all just built around frameworks and process. And when you
totally.
see this activity coming, and I still have to work on things. And I've been in and out of therapy for a long time. I think everybody should do it because it's all about self awareness and all about trying to figure out what the triggers are that make you behave in a certain way,
Right.
right? Whether it's self destructive behavior or not,
Totally.
so it doesn't really matter because you're really trying to channel your positives. And
Yeah.
that's sort of what you do now for entrepreneurs, because what you're saying today is, hey, look, you know, I've learned all these things as a in my mistakes, and now I'm a coach, and I'm sort of
Yeah.
helping you.
Hmm.
All right.
Yep. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that I think everybody should have some kind of a therapy. Or when I came out of rehab, like my family was all there to kind of support and welcome me back into the real world. And my
Yeah.
first thought was, every one of you should come check in. Like,
Yeah.
because it's not just about that drug thing. It's some like you got it, you got it, you got.
Yeah.
Everybody's got stuff that we could work out.
Oh, everybody's got stuff, man.
Yep,
Everybody
that's
does.
for sure.
Yeah, there's no question about it. But I do think that it's helped me become a better, more self aware as a an entrepreneur. You know, obviously, I've had a couple of great successes and a couple of more failures along the way. But the
Hmm.
failures were really for me getting involved. You know, you get this, you have a couple of good successes, and then you feel like I
You're
can
bulletproof. Yeah.
I can market anything. I
Yeah.
understand, Mark. I can market
Yeah.
anything, and you get out of your lane. We went into fashion. I have no business being in fashion. I can barely dress myself. And I'm sitting there, and no wonder it didn't work out. And when we got into nutraceuticals and, some things that we just shouldn't have gotten into. And, you know, so, again, that's really my mindset. You need somebody to, bring you back to reality. And my
Hmm.
wife is great for that for me because I'll start going off and she'll just, hammer down on me and say, how many times you want to get hit over the head before you put a helmet on? And you're like, yeah, you're right. So I think, you know,
That's a good one.
I think it's fun. But the other thing you said early on about, there's a lot of, pills or drug activity in sales. And, as you were saying it, I started thinking about it because I have a lot of friends who were in sales and about really in the 90s and the early 2000s, they started really getting heavily involved in like cocaine.
Yeah.
And it was almost like you pounded it during the day, you were meetings and meetings, and then you took somebody out, to close the deal. You're
Hmm.
drinking and you're, getting involved in other stuff. And that sort of, I don't know if the sales part of it is, because I have seen a lot of it with alcohol, with sales guys and alcohol, because they feel like they have to take out and entertain, and
Yeah.
then they're constantly out drinking. Then the next thing you know, they're checking into rehab because they overdid it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is something to that. I think the pressure is on to close the deal, and then they've got the client and they've got to close it, and they're doing anything they can, going to strip clubs and taking them to
Oh yeah.
dinner, and you know,
Oh yeah, for sure. There's also something to be said about just starting when you're commission based. You can make the most money out of any other job, right? That's usually the highest
yeah,
paying job.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you're also, and I remember this feeling again and again, starting every Monday at zero. It's like I've made no
Oh
money.
yeah, yeah.
You come in, all your performance boards, they had whiteboards all over. They're all erased, and you got your name zero right next to it. It's like, okay, here we go again.
That's
You're
right.
repeating, and so you're starting from the bottom and trying to climb up, and you put yourself in kind of a pressure situation there. I like how you mentioned, Phil, like just having somebody else to bring you back to reality and just kind of check you. And my team and I, we put together a goal that we want to reach 50,000 business owners in the next year. So we've been doing a lot of consulting and coaching one-to-one for years, over a decade now, but we're not going to impact a ton of people that way, right? There's time's limited. There's only so much. So we're going out through content to try to just disseminate more social media, videos, YouTube, everything, every platform. But we sit around and have meetings and we start brainstorming ideas and how we can do this or that or the other. And I always remind the team almost every weekly meeting we have, guys, if you think that we are going to come up with the answers in this circle that will solve that problem, we are in big trouble because there's no one in this circle who has ever reached 50,000 business owners. Nobody's done it. I
Right.
think we can do it, but we each need to turn around and go out into the world and find the people that have done it before and bring that knowledge back to our group so that we can all grow together.
Yeah, we I do coaching as well as running Crunch Growth, and it's some of it is a little bit of an offshoot off Crunch Growth because we may have a client who just, is stuck on themselves, and to get them out of it, or struggling to scale or whatever. But with entrepreneurs, most coaches don't want to deal with startup entrepreneurs because A, they don't really have any money, and B, most of them aren't qualified to do it because they've never done a startup. Um,
Mhm.
so we do groups, and that's sort of how we reach 10, 15, 20 at a time, because we
Yeah.
can do a group, and especially we can do it online, and we can meet which I find, I mean, I love startups because I love to hear the energy and I love to hear the stories and how people come up with things. And I always do it in a positive way because I never tell an entrepreneur that he has a bad idea. I'll never do it because I don't know if it's a bad idea. I only
Yeah.
know my experiences. But I find that is good. But I think, the way that what I've seen in my lifetime of reaching that kind of people. It's really about events. It's the
Yeah.
Tony Robbins model.
Right.
He could reach 50,000 people, and then you can, by doing events, and
Sure.
that
Yeah.
sort of, you know, I think that's a great way of doing them. But the events have to be. I see too many events done by people like masterminds, and we're going to Puerto Rico to this mastermind. It's going to cost you $3,000. Come down, but you get nothing out of it. Nothing real tangible. Nothing that you
Hmm.
walk away with. And I think in order when people leave a Tony Robbins event, good, bad, or indifferent, they're energized, right? There was
Yeah.
another guy that he was doing them with for a while. Uh, uh, oh God, I can't remember his name now. He died, and his daughter is trying to do it now. But he was a great guy, but they were doing them, all around the country. But you walked away feeling like you were energized, feeling like you could take on the world, and you had some great information. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's lacking today. So many people are putting on events that are just garbage,
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
yeah,
And that's a good example. Like if I've never done events. I've
yeah,
run a lot of different kinds of businesses and been a part of many others, but I've never done an event, never put one on, and nobody that works for me ever has either. So once again, if you want to get to levels like that, you can't count on just what's coming in here. You may get some inspiration, you may
yeah,
get some motivation, right? But if you really want to be, you need a discipline, you need a system for standardizing what it is. I was talking about this with my son yesterday. We were watching the game. The Phillies and the Dodgers were playing, and that was a great game if you like baseball, right to the
I do
end.
like baseball, but I'm a Yankees fan, and I'm not having a good time.
Okay. I'm Boston, so even worse. Okay.
You're a Boston fan?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. I
killing.
know. It was rough.
Yeah, I'm a
You,
Giants Yankees fan, so this season is just horrible for me. Last season, I mean, it's just been horrible. I've been rooting for the Bills now. At least they're from New York because I'm from New York. So at least I got something good. But I love watching sports. I'll watch any game. I don't care.
yeah, that's good. That's good. And while the game was on at our house last night, I said to my son who wants to play baseball in college, like, look, there's 10 guys on the field right now.
Yeah,
There's 40,000 in the stands. I bet you 80% or better of those fans had the hope one day in their early childhood that they wanted to play on that field.
sure.
And so did those 10 guys. Those 10 guys all had that hope. So what's the difference? Why are there 40,000 who paid to be there and 10 on the field right now getting paid handsomely to be there?
Yeah,
And the difference, I think, is in their standards that they were willing to uphold on a day-to-day basis. So they took a hope or a spark of motivation, and then from that said, it's like Kobe Bryant. I heard some story. I don't know how true it is, but it sounds really good. That when he was 12 years old, the guidance counselor at elementary said, "What are you going to do for when you grow up? What do you want to do when you get big?" And he said, "I'm going to play in the NBA." And the response was, "Well, that's like a one in a million thing. So what else is what's your other plan?" He's like, "I'll be the one in the million. Then I'm playing in the NBA." Like that's the attitude where you start building standards.
okay. You're 100% right. And Kobe, I'm glad you brought that example up because it's my understanding from watching, interviews with him and some other things. And other players talking about him. He used to sit out in his outside and shoot when he was, I think it was in grammar school, elementary school, and he used to shoot 100. He wouldn't come in until he sunk 100 free throws. And then he did that all through high school. And then he did it all through the pros. When he was practicing, he would stay in the gym and shoot 100 free throws. And until he made 100, he wouldn't stop. And he, one of his teammates said, uh, the season was over, and he said, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" And the guy said, "I'm gonna, I'm gonna start working out and try and get better." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And the next morning, he went into the gym, and Kobe was already there at 6 a.m. And he used to do two a days.
Yeah.
So he had, you know, I think part of it is systemic discipline. He knows he's going to do it. He knows that he needs to do this to get to that. And so he
Right.
just continues to do it. And one of the things I I tell people about coaching is, whether you're coaching sports or you're coaching entrepreneurs, is that you look at anybody. Tiger Woods, when he was practicing, when he was winning all those championships, he used to have his coach, whether it was Butch Harmon or whoever, on the tee box, watching him hit balls and giving him instant feedback. So if the greatest in the world needs a coach, then you do too. you know
Bingo. Yep. Yep. That, and it's about, I had a call with a guy today, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I just want to see how this works out first and see how that goes." I'm like, "Okay, sure. Take 6 months and then call back. Like, how fast do you want to get there? Because I want to get to results as fast as possible." And that was, so I like that term you just said, systemic discipline. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they have their coaches, but they also have a set of standards where, well, as you were talking about Kobe, I'm thinking of Steph Curry too, where he
Oh
shoots like
yeah.
500 3-pointers every day. That's on Sunday. That's during the season. That's during the off season. Like, he has a minimum standard that he does not quit. He doesn't stop. He doesn't go home until that's done.
Right. That's his discipline. And but he's got a system. He knows that, look, what makes me unique is my ability to hit three pointers. And
Yeah.
so my discipline is, I'm going to make sure I'm the best at shooting three pointers, and then I'm going to work on, dribbling, and I'll work on ball handling, and work on this and this and this. I was watching what's her name? The female basketball player, the Caitlin Caitlin Clark, uh, uh,
Okay.
you know, and I was watching her. And what she does is, she does all these ball handling things for hours
Mm,
and hours and hours a day. And even after, so she'll go straight from a game to the gym to start practicing with her coach. She has a personal coach. Um, what's his name? Deion Sanders, when he was playing, he had his coach on the team, but then he had his personal coach.
yep.
So
Yep.
you need to have discipline, and you need to have a system, so to
For
to
sure.
implement that. And that's really, I think, whether, it doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter whether it's sports, whether it's business. You have to have a system, and you have to have discipline.
Absolutely. I was doing the same thing this year with and if we're getting too far away from business, you can reel me back in. But I set one of my goals. I have kids. My boys are very athletically inclined. They're perfect physical specimens that I don't even have to try. You know. And after 2 years I've been in pretty good shape, but I'm a little soft around the middle. And
Sure.
after 2 years of them saying, "Come on, Daddy, are you gonna get a 6 pack or what?" This year I was like, "Okay, maybe I'll get a little serious about that." So I went through my goal setting process and kind of broke down what are the standards that I need to have, and I set some goals. I said, "Okay, 10% body fat. I'm going to get 10," and I was at 18 or 20, I think, to start. So I had all year to do it. Started off with a good momentum, but I set standards. It was 2,100 calories every day. It was 220 grams of protein within those
Yeah.
calories.
Sure.
So that's my base. I track everything that I ate. That was another standard. And then progressively, there's only four. That was it. Progressively lift heavier from one week to the next. So add a pound next week when I go to the gym. Oh, number 5 was go to the gym every day, 7 days a week. So those were the 5 things that I did. I made really good progress for the first 3 months, and then I hit a plateau. And that plateau lasted 4 months. I didn't move the needle. I would go up a little, down. And I went back to my resources, and I'm like, okay, this is not. I tried everything, Phil, that I could think of. There were 2 weeks where I did 30 grams of carbs a day, which is like one piece of broccoli. I mean,
Right.
that's nothing. And I was going nuts, just like making myself crazy. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm chasing my tail here. So I went to my coach. I went to my trainers. I have part of my process. I kind of go through 6 steps every time I get real serious about a goal. And I kind of follow these 6 steps. One of them is unlocking resources.
Yeah.
That's where I list coaches' names. I list influencers on Instagram, the people anywhere in the world, any tool, person, platform that will help me achieve that thing. So I went back to my notes from January. In July, I'm like, okay, what can I do? Started talking to the trainers that were on my list, started talking to people. Everybody kept saying steps. I'm like, no, you need to just get 10,000 steps in a day. I'm like, that's what 80-year-old ladies do. I'm in shape. I don't need to do that. But the seventh person that said steps to me, I was like, all right, shit, I get it. I'm going to do. So I set a 15,000 minimum steps per day. And in 2 weeks, I went from 12.5% to 10 in two
Yeah.
weeks. That plateau that I've been for 4 months, I went to my coaches, got information, and unlocked the next level.
Yeah. This is like a conversation that my wife and I have every day because we are both. I've always been athletic. I've always done sports. I did triathlons for years, and so I understand the fundamentals. And but I do struggle with my weight. But we're fortunate. We have a gym in the house, and we work out every day. But my wife is very good about tracking every single thing, and I am not. I track once, and then I eat the same thing every day for every meal because I know
That's a
it,
good
and then I'm
system.
like,
Yep.
yeah, that's my system. And but I'm not trying to get a six pack. I'm just trying to maintain my strength
Yeah.
and stuff. And then we walk every night, but inevitably you hit a plateau, and I've had a plateau where it lasted 3 or 4 months, and what was happening was at the same time as I was losing um, body fat, I was gaining muscle because I decided
Mhm.
I I talked to this trainer and he was telling me, no, you got to do more weights, you got to do more weights, you got to do more weights, and I was just doing a lot of cardio, and
Yeah.
I was doing push-ups and pull-ups and stuff, but I was just doing cycling and running because that's what I was doing for years. He's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 you got to do more weights, got to do more weights. So I started doing more weights and I started to put on turning body fat into
Adding muscle mass.
muscle
Yeah.
mass. But
Hmm.
so I wasn't on a weight side. I wasn't moving the needle, and it was bothering me. And then all of a sudden, like I had a whoosh. What my wife and I call whooshes, because then all of a sudden in like a month you lose 10 pounds, and
Yeah.
it's like it's great. But yeah, I haven't attempted to get a six pack. I'm just more concerned with. I like to do things like I do 100 push-ups a day. I I,
Mm.
I do I do. I just started doing kettlebell stuff. Like
Okay.
a hundred of these kettlebell
Swings.
things a day,
Yep. Okay.
and and then I do weights and stuff like that. But I still do cardio. I just don't do it as it's not 90% of the workout anymore. It's like
Yeah.
30%. So
Yep. Yep. And I like what you said. It's what you do every day. I do 100 push-ups every day, and
yeah, every
that's
day.
these big sweeping moments. The whoosh comes, and we
Yeah,
all look and hunt for the whoosh, right? But the whoosh only comes for the things that we do daily. Those bricks that stack. That I saw a post on Instagram today, and it was like all these stacks of paper that were white, and then the top one, and then there was an arrow pointing saying work, 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 work. Lucky break at the top. And, everybody sees that top green one as a lucky break. It's like, well, there's been 364 days of just doing the same boring shit every day. That stops up.
well, I when I coach somebody who's an early stage company, I tell them the same thing. I say, look, every day I want you to get up, and the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think and write down the step. What is the step you're going to take that is going to drive the business up 5% today? What are you going to do? Are you going to call people? Are you going to, because that's the only thing that matters, right? Everything else is going to sort of fall into place. You can cut costs, you can do all kinds of things, you can revamp your ads and stuff. But what are you going to do to drive your business forward? 5%. every single day.
Yep.
And that's how you have to start thinking. And that's, that's sort of a process. It's one that I've employed when I started, because if you do that, and if you can start going 5% a day, 5% a day, 5% a day, because the early stage, 5% could be $10,
Yeah.
5% could be $100.
Hmm.
So, you know, you start doing that, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're doing, $500,000 a month.
For
And
sure.
yeah,
I
it was
love it.
364 days of 5%. But at the end of that 365th day, all of a sudden you look around and you go, Jesus, I just turned this into a business. Now we have to
Exactly.
work, now we have to focus on systems,
Yeah.
but let's get sales right now. Let's make sure we have a model that people want to buy your product. So,
Yep. I love that. I say the same thing. Most of the people that I work with are usually they're a little later stage, so they've been in. They're not that much further along revenue wise. They're usually under about 1.5 million, because there's a common set of problems between
sure.
500,000 to 1.5 million. They're just
Absolutely.
everybody's. It's very similar, and that's typically where I see people. So when people come in that are 5 or 6 years in business and they've been hovering at that level for that long, there's a lot of habits leading.
Yeah.
There's a lot of predictable stuff going on that I
Oh,
can
yeah.
point. And I do something similar where my morning mantra or morning routine is just a little different than yours. And it's what do I need to do today to move closer to either the dream or the vision that I have, or to my business? Like, get clear on what that question is, but write down one thing, not 17, because that's
Right.
often what happens. People 5, 6 years in, they're so damn busy shuffling papers and trying new apps and new platforms, they feel exhausted because of all the work they're doing, and they haven't moved the needle an inch
Yeah.
because they are not focusing on the 5%. They're focusing on all the noise.
Well, are you familiar with Vern Harnish? Do you know who he is?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
He's got two books. One is called The Rockefeller Habits. The other one's called Scaling Up. But Vern was on the show. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. But he changed my life about 30 years ago.
Okay.
And he wrote The Rockefeller Habits. And in that, he talks about the one-page business plan. Because when I made the mistake of going, my first business, which I talked about before, was a little bit of a disaster. After that, I sold it and I took the money and I went to graduate school. And not because I needed more education, I needed to think differently. And
Yeah.
then while I was at graduate school, I got involved with this company that had two stores and we were growing. And I was charged, while I was in grad school, I was charged with, made a small investment in the company, but I was charged with putting the book together to raise capital so that we could expand, which we
Mhm.
did successfully. But the book was it was a bit, essentially a business plan with the financials for the last couple of years, but it was very detailed, right? And then when I started it, after we exited that business after a couple of years, and I started a business called the Daily Market. I wrote this detailed business plan, and each month was detailed out and yada yada. And it was just it's a multi-page document. And I went to this seminar that Vern had. He was talking about the one-page business plan, and it changed my life because it's the problem that I had with writing a business plan is that you never do anything with it. It sits in a drawer.
Yeah.
And this you pretty much stick on your wall because it's got, all the goals. And it's basically, like you said, it's broken down into really small goals. Like,
Hmm.
this is what you're going to do this quarter. And this
Yeah.
is the sale target for this quarter. And this is your such and such target for this quarter. And you go quarter to quarter and you continually update it. So you're continually thinking about your business.
Hmm.
And so I've sort of modified that into my own world. But that I agree with, and keeping things simple onto just what are you going to do to move the business forward. I don't care if it's steps, but I like to put 5% or whatever
I like
percentage on
that.
it just because of that.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a quick story, because some of the coaching work we do comes out of the company, comes out of Crunch Growth. We had a client who came to us about 3 years ago, and founder of the company, he grew it from 0 to 20 million. And he got to 20 million, and it was stuck for like
Hmm.
2 years. And he came to us because he thought it was a marketing and advertising problem. He's like, oh, the ads are terrible, blah, blah, blah. And they had a brand, plus they also did wholesale. And I said, okay, we can work on that. We'll talk about your social media, and we put together a plan, and we started executing on it. And the thing that bothered me was he had hired this guy who was an A+ sales guy. I mean, this guy was powerhouse in sales, knew everybody in the industry, right? And he couldn't move the needle. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong here. So we were on a call, and I said, "Hey, would you have a problem doing a 2-day offsite? Let's just let's just regroup because I think there's something else going on."
Okay.
Within 3 hours, I had the answer. I said to the sales guy, "I don't understand. You're a powerhouse. You know everybody in the industry. What do you think the reason is you can't move this forward?" He said, "Simple. He wants to be on every single sales call." He said,
Mhm.
he's the founder, he's the CEO, he's running operations, he's running marketing, he's running finance, he's running sales, he said, so he said, I can't make I can't make an appointment until I look at his schedule, and his schedule is booked out for 2 weeks. He
Oh
said,
boy.
so I can't do anything. And I said, do you think that that's the right way to run this business? I mean, he's like, well, I started and that's how I got here. I was, I said, yeah, now, but you're at the point where you're saying, okay, I'm stuck. I can't get over this hump. So maybe you just need to back off and let the people that you hired do their job, and you start managing the people. I said, instead of trying to manage all the process, take a step back. Took the gloves off. Took us a while to get through. Believe me, it wasn't easy. It took the
Mhm.
whole 2 days to work on that one thing. And
Right.
we finally got him to agree, made him put it in writing. And he did back off. And I said, just come in for the close. That's all you need to do. Let him do the
Yeah.
legwork. Come in for the close.
Hmm.
Since that time, it was 3 years ago, a little bit less than 3 years ago that we started. Since that time, they're up to 52 million in
Oh
sales.
wow.
And now he's like, oh my God, I believe you. I believe you. I believe you. I said, yeah, I told you. See?
See,
Yeah.
those are those habits, Phil, that you that's what's tricky. And I use stupid, simple analogies. Like, let's say you're baking a cookie and all your friends, every time you bake cookies, your friends, everybody's just raves about them.
Yeah.
Oh man, these are great, right? These are the best thing ever. After you hear that a few times and people kind of encouraging you to sell them, you just say, hey, maybe I will. So that thing that's your passion project that you started this endeavor for
Yeah.
to pursue, you're in the kitchen, you're throwing flour and sugar and everything all around, you're having a great time. But there's a point where all that leading up, you hit this level, and
Yeah.
that's what I refer to as a capacity ceiling, where no
Yeah.
longer are your skills in the kitchen the relevant ingredient for growth.
Yeah.
Zero to do with that.
Yeah, and I use the analogy. I mean, I use the story about Larry Ellison because Larry Ellison, Oracle almost went bankrupt in the
Yeah.
early '90s, and the team that he had that got him from, I think they were doing a couple hundred million at that time, that got him from zero to a couple hundred million, couldn't get him higher. And
Yep.
they were at their capacity ceiling as well as he was. And he had to really make some hard decisions and had to get rid of all those people. And he liked them and they were friends and all that. It
For
wasn't a
sure.
personal thing, but it just wasn't going to get there. And I mean, because everybody, I think young entrepreneurs look at companies like that and they think everything went according to plan and it was perfect, but it wasn't. And so everybody's got a capacity ceiling. Everybody does. You have to
Totally.
change. Your mind has to shift at different points throughout the evolution of your business career if you want to stay there. You look at how many entrepreneurs get taken out after they get capital in. It's not because the VCs want to make all the decisions. It's because the guy hit his ceiling. He can't get him. He can't get you from here to there. Some
Correct.
people are smart enough to say, I know I can't, right? And they say this is the job I'm going to do, and like Steve Wozniak was great at that. And then there are some that think, no, I want to be the CEO. But if you want to be the CEO, you've got to change. You got to evolve.
Which is a real self-development program. It's not for the faint of heart,
No,
right?
it's not the faint of heart.
You got to, like, you literally have to have the majority of your calendar set aside for that task of growing personally. And that's what people don't get, whether it's a cookie maker or an electrician or a plumber. Like, I've been working a lot with tradesmen that are getting 2-3 million bucks that are running a good business,
Yeah,
but they're just trying to do more of everything that got them there
yeah,
to get
yeah,
them to the next level. And they're like, what the hell is going on?
yeah,
I'm losing my mind here. But they're doing zero things to improve their ability. And I like how you said that a minute ago. You build the business up to the point where then you shift and you start building the people to build the business, which
Yeah,
means
exactly.
you have to become a leader of people, no longer of electricity or baking supplies, or, it's a people game. It's a human resource game.
Absolutely.
And that's a
Absolutely.
big shift.
Yeah. And that took me um that took me a long time to learn because again, you know, I I screwed up my first business because of that. I was a terrible leader and I was trying to do everything myself and I was trying to have all the answers and it didn't work. And I talk about it now and people go, oh, well, you're so self-aware, but it took me a while to be that self-aware because, I went to graduate school and it wasn't until I was in like my second year and we were doing something. We were doing a case analysis and the same type of thing. The CEO was just overbearing and he was, micromanaging and it was holding and restricting the business back. And I sat there going, well, that was me. That was me. And that was at that point when the light went off. And then when I went to Sutton Place and we were scaling that business, we had just a great CEO. He actually was a real estate developer guy, but he was just a great guy, and he was and so we were scaling that business, and I was pretty close to him, very small senior team, and I mean it was great. That was a great experience. Those two things turned me into a better leader, and then after that, then that's to me. Sometimes I take it too extreme, where I go, "Yeah, everybody take care of that. This is what I'm going to do." But now, when I hire people, I tell them exactly what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and what you can expect from me,
Yep.
because I'm not. There are things that I can't do and I won't do because I'm never going to be good at them.
Yeah. And it usually makes no sense for you to even try, right? I mean, it, there's, there's people that play at the things I work at, and some of my challenges were around the finances and
Yeah,
the financial reports with my business and got me
yeah,
into some trouble at a later stage.
yeah, yeah,
And I had an avoidance technique. That was my strategy. Oh, I'll just do it later, you know, and that I paid dearly for that. But then when I started to become more aware and get back into it, I realized there's people that work for me today that as soon as I start talking about one thing, like, hey, we got a situation we need to figure out, they go and open Microsoft Excel. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong? That is not, you'll never see me do that. Never in a million years. But I'm so grateful that that's their go-to because it gives them, like, that's just the filter that they see the world through and they solve problems through it. So
exactly.
when you need things done, if you need it done in Excel, don't call me.
Yeah,
But there are people that learning that lesson was huge for me because realizing not everyone is like me, and that's a good thing because we'd all be nuts if that was the case. And then there's
yeah,
people that have these skill sets and these passions and desires where they want to open Excel. So I can give them the parameters in my broken English and they can turn it into a financial report that makes sense that a CPA can understand and I can understand.
yeah,
That is a beautiful thing
yeah,
because it's not in my wheelhouse. So they can do it like that. If
yeah,
I tried to do it, it would take me 9 hours. I'd probably break the whole computer because of frustration and just not, it's not a good thing.
yeah. I hear you. Uh, you know, it was a great conversation, and we're pretty much out of time. I didn't realize how far we went. Um, but any closing thoughts? Any great words of wisdom along the way, aside from the ones you've already given us?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would probably just want to share with, depending on where people are in the journey, is to remember there's people that play at what you work or struggle at, and to hire in the right order. Phil, you and I both talked about some of our experiences that we try to hold on to things. We've kept a hold of things. Then we've learned how to build the people that can do things better than us, and then that role needs to shift. And I have a delegation priority framework for people that are at $1 million or right below or just above, it usually comes down to hiring in the right sequence. The sequence is key. Most entrepreneurs get a little, we can imagine things, right? That's why we do what we do. So we imagine we see through rose colored lenses
Yeah,
that we can find this great solution out there. And we want to jump ahead and hire our operator. somebody that's going to be the yin to our yang,
Yeah.
I would say 9 out of 10 times that's going to bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
But if you start and you work through the right sequence of hires, start in admin, start in the low, the low price, the low barriers, the low failure points too. If it
Right.
breaks, it's not as critical. When you get up into leadership or sales and things start breaking, oh man, they can be real trouble to fix.
Yeah.
So start work through a process, and if there's anything, like, I have a delegation priority framework that if anybody listening, if that hits home, just come over and follow me on Instagram, and I'm at It's Justin Lund, and I'll send it to you. It's my Google playbook, Google Doc. It's our playbook internally. Just say crunching pyramid, and I'll send it to you for free. So if that helps, I'd love to share.
All right. Great. Thanks. I appreciate that. So thanks, Justin, for bringing the truth and your tools.
Yeah, you
Uh,
bet.
so yeah, your next step: identify one place you're the bottleneck and replace your effort with a system or a delegated outcome this week. So that's your task for the week. So if today helped, subscribe, share with your founder, share with a founder who needs it, leave a review. I'm Phil Masiello, and I'll see you next Tuesday for more ways to crunch your growth.